Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. She stood there with her arms crossed, eyes flat, voice cold. I'm not here to serve you. 7 words. No yelling. No drama. Just a statement, rehearsed and sharp like glass. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, because something inside me had already started shutting down. Quietly. Efficiently. Like a man sealing a vault. I just nodded, once, and walked past her. That was the moment. Not when the distance began. No, that came months ago. Not when the sex stopped, or the smiles disappeared, or the mornings turned to silence. Those were symptoms. This was diagnosis. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. No rage. No heartbreak. Just the slow, clean clarity of someone watching the final light go out in a place they used to call home. 11 years of marriage. A shared mortgage. 2 cars. No kids. Just a well-decorated house and a woman who had convinced herself she was owed more than she gave. Her career had grown. She had followers now. A voice. A brand. And I had become her backdrop. The reliable provider. The husband she didn't need, but kept around like a subscription she forgot to cancel. I used to make her coffee every morning. Black with cinnamon oat milk. I'd fill her tank, fold her laundry, leave the light on when she worked late. She used to smile at those things. Thank me. Kiss me on the shoulder just because. But somewhere along the way, gratitude turned into entitlement. Softness into indifference. I'd become invisible. The ghost who paid the bills and kept the lights on. And now? Now she stood in our kitchen, looking me dead in the eye, and told me she was done serving. So I stopped providing. No warnings. No yelling. Just silence. A different kind of silence than before. Not the one born from disconnection. This one was tactical. The next morning, I didn't brew 2 cups of coffee, just one. Mine. I didn't remind her about her dentist appointment. Didn't move her packages inside when Amazon dropped them on the porch. I didn't refill the fridge or the gas tank. I didn't fix the faucet she'd been complaining about. And she didn't notice. Not yet. She thought this was about domestic tasks. Gender roles. Power. But this wasn't a protest. This wasn't revenge. This was the beginning of extraction. I'd carried this marriage on my shoulders for years. Quietly, steadily, like a man dragging a broken sled across a frozen lake. And the moment she told me she wasn't here to serve, I realized I wasn't here to carry. And once I set that weight down, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Not the kind you shout about. The kind you feel in your chest when the silence finally stops hurting. When it starts healing. She had no idea what was coming. Not because I was about to destroy her life, but because I was about to remove myself from it completely. And that would be louder than any scream I could have given her. The thing about disappearing is, you don't do it all at once. You fade. Like the smell of her perfume on a jacket she stopped wearing. Like the laughter that used to live in the hallway but hasn't been heard in months. I started with the routines. The invisible weight I carried every day without thanks or notice. I let it go. Slowly. Without ceremony. The shared grocery list on the fridge? I stopped updating it. She used to ask, "Do we need anything?" Now she just stared into an empty fridge and blinked. Our joint calendar? I wiped it clean. Her yoga classes. Her friends' birthdays. All the reminders I used to set for her like a loyal assistant? Gone. Not maliciously. Just removed. I didn't refill the toothpaste. Didn't sync our streaming profiles. Didn't fix the settings on her car's Bluetooth when it glitched. She complained, of course. Muttered under her breath like the house had suddenly turned against her. It hadn't. I had just stopped holding it together. That weekend, I let the lawn overgrow. A small thing. But the grass used to be my ritual. Perfect lines. Clean edges. A quiet, thankless devotion. She once joked it was my form of therapy. Now it was hers to worry about. She noticed. I could tell by the way she looked out the window Sunday morning, arms folded, sipping her green smoothie. Like something was off. But she didn't ask. Not directly. She didn't dare open the door she'd slammed shut. Instead, she started walking differently around me, watching me out of the corner of her eye, testing the silence like it might bite. One night, she stood in the hallway holding her phone. Said she was ordering sushi. Her favorite. Extra spicy tuna. "Do you want anything?" she asked, voice light, almost flirty. I shook my head without looking up from my laptop. Already ate. Lie. But it landed. She hesitated, then walked away. I heard her place the order, heard her sigh when the delivery arrived with only one pair of chopsticks. Later that night, she brought the mail into the kitchen. Bills. Subscriptions. The usual. "Didn't you cancel Spotify?" she asked, flipping through a charge. "I did," I replied. "That one's yours." She frowned. That was the moment it hit her. The lines were being redrawn. Not with shouting. Not with ultimatums. But with boundaries. Quiet, invisible, permanent boundaries. And then came the night she broke the silence. Not in words. Those were still filtered, polished, performative. It was the pause. She passed me in the hallway. Our eyes met. Something flickered. A quiet plea, maybe. But I didn't stop. Didn't ask. Because here's the truth no one tells you. When a man stops fighting for closeness, it doesn't mean he stopped loving. It means he stopped hoping. And once hope dies, there's nothing left to repair. Just space. And silence. And steps that keep moving further and further away. The first crack wasn't loud. It came wrapped in politeness. "Hey, do you want to watch something tonight?" she asked, standing in the doorway like a guest in her own home. She never phrased it like that before. It used to be, "Let's watch this," or "You'll love this episode." Back then, her voice carried assumption. Now, it carried hope. I didn't even look up from my book. "Already started something," I said. She stood there a second too long, then nodded and left the room. It's strange, watching someone realize their gravity is gone. That they no longer pull you in like they used to. She walked slower these days. Talked softer. As if volume had ever been the problem. What she didn't understand, what most people don't, is that silence isn't absence. It's presence without participation. It's a man standing in the same room as you but already living in a world you're no longer invited to. I still did the dishes. Still folded the laundry. Still showed up to work on time, made the bed, watered the plants. But everything I did alone. And she started feeling it. One night I came home late. Not too late, just enough. She was on the couch, hair done, makeup light but precise. A dress I hadn't seen in months. "Oh," she said when I walked in. "You're home." I nodded. "Yeah, I made dinner." I looked at the table. 2 plates. Candles. Napkins folded with care. It looked nice. Intentional. Desperate. I walked past her and into the kitchen. Poured myself water. Took my time. "I already ate," I said. She stood there for a second, trying to smile. But it didn't land. "That's okay. I'll save it." I didn't respond. That night, I lay in bed while she moved around the house quietly. Turning off lights. Blowing out candles. Wiping down a table no one ate at. I listened to every sound. The clicks of disappointment. The hum of unraveling. She thought she'd punish me with withdrawal. That I'd come crawling, begging for warmth. But the difference between punishment and consequence is who feels it longer. She used to say I was too soft. That I needed to be more assertive. But when a man who's loved you without condition goes quiet, it's not softness. It's resolve. And the woman who once felt empowered by distance now sat at the edge of it, wondering when the bridge burned. The next morning, she lingered by the door as I laced my shoes. "You've been different lately," she said. I smiled. A small, controlled thing. Just tired. She didn't believe it. I could tell. But she nodded anyway. And that was the first time I saw fear in her eyes, not fear of me leaving. Fear that I already had. Because I was still there. Still shaving in the same bathroom. Still sitting across from her at dinner. But everything that made me hers had already left the building. And the silence? It was starting to echo. It didn't take long before the silence spilled beyond our walls. At first, it was subtle. A shift in tone when she spoke to friends. A tension she carried into rooms like a perfume she didn't realize she was wearing. She started snapping at little things, missing keys, slow internet, overcooked eggs. But it wasn't about the keys. It was about control slipping. Her sister called one afternoon while I was in the garage. I heard her voice through the cracked window. "Yeah, I don't know. He's just acting weird lately. Cold. Distant." A pause. "No, I didn't cheat. God, why does everyone always jump to that?" Another pause. "I didn't do anything. He's just different." That's when I knew. She wasn't just confused. She was rewriting the narrative. The version where she's still the good one. Still the victim of an unexplained shift. Still the wife who tried. But narratives only hold when no one knows the full picture. That's why I started letting the truth show, just a little. I stopped posting our photos on social. Removed the framed vacation shot from my office at work. When friends asked how things were, I didn't lie. I didn't vent either. I just said, "We're going through some things." and let them fill in the blanks. Her friends noticed first, the kind who used to call her inspirational. Now they paused longer before saying anything. One mutual friend texted me, "You doing okay? You've been really quiet lately. Just checking in." I replied, "Appreciate it. Just recalibrating some things." The silence was spreading, and she could feel it. She came into the room one evening with her phone in hand. Why did Madison message me about us? I didn't even look up. Maybe she noticed something. What does that mean? I met her gaze calm. You're the one who said we needed space. Her mouth opened, closed. Then she turned and left. She hadn't expected the distance to be visible. Hadn't expected her carefully filtered life to crack at the edges. She thought silence was private. But when a man truly disconnects, the world doesn't see an argument. It sees absence. That's what unsettled her most. Not my words, but the fact I had stopped using them at all. She started leaving hints, playing the part, laughing louder on speakerphone, posting old couple photos with recycled captions like, "Grateful for this one," as if hashtags could fix what her actions broke. I didn't respond. Not with words. Not with tags. Not with any of the digital threads she used to bind perception to reality. Because this wasn't about who looked like the bad guy. This was about who could live without the illusion. And between the two of us, only one had learned how to breathe in silence. She finally snapped on a Wednesday, middle of the week, midday, mid-conversation with herself, mostly. I had just walked in from work, kicked off my shoes, and poured a glass of water like it was any other evening. Calm, quiet, normal. She stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, foot tapping like a metronome that couldn't keep rhythm with the silence anymore. "This is getting ridiculous," she said. I didn't respond. "You can't just keep acting like this." Still nothing. She slammed a drawer shut. "Say something, damn it." I turned, slow and deliberate. Took a sip. Met her eyes. "About what?" She blinked, like I'd punched through whatever script she had prepared. "About us." "There is no us," I said, voice low. "Just you and me, in the same house." That's when her face cracked. Not fully, just a hairline fracture. "You think you're being noble? Stoic? You're being cruel." I nodded slowly. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just done carrying something you let die a long time ago." She flinched. And there it was. The moment when her confidence faltered. The mask slipped. Because people like her don't break during impact, they break in the silence that follows. When there's no one to argue with. No one to blame. Just a mirror. And a man who no longer reflects the image she wants to believe in. I walked past her. Quiet. Measured. "You're really not going to try?" she called out. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs. "I tried for years," I said. "You just noticed because I stopped." That night, I slept deeper than I had in weeks. She didn't. I heard her get up. Pacing. Opening cabinets. Closing them again. Looking for something to do. Something to fix. But there was nothing left for her to control. The next day, she cooked breakfast. Full spread. Eggs, toast, avocado, even orange slices the way I liked them. I walked into the kitchen, looked at the plate. "Thought you might be hungry," she said, trying to sound casual. I nodded. Picked up my keys. "Already ate." She didn't respond. Just stood there as I walked out the door. By the end of the week, she'd started texting again. Not much. Just little attempts to bridge the void. "Hope your day's going okay. Need anything from the store?" "Miss you," I replied once. "Thanks. All good." That was it. Nothing more. Because this wasn't about pushing her away. It was about no longer being afraid to live without her. She had built a world where love was a currency, given out in rations. I was done trading for scraps. Now she sat at a table full of everything I used to offer, and realized she had no idea how to earn it back. And that silence? It was no longer mine. It was hers. By the following week, her rhythm was broken. The silence that once empowered her had turned into something else, something sharp, something that scraped against her skin the longer it lasted. She started coming home earlier, cooking more, wearing clothes she hadn't worn in years, tight jeans, soft sweaters, little details I used to compliment before compliments became one-sided. She hovered more too, lingering in the hallway when I passed, sitting beside me on the couch without a word, laughing a little too loud at her phone, like noise could replace connection. But I didn't flinch. That Friday night, she lit candles in the dining room, made pasta from scratch, my favorite, poured 2 glasses of wine. I walked in, paused at the table. "This looks nice," I said flatly. She smiled, hopeful. "I thought we could talk." Maybe reconnect. I nodded, walked over to the sink, rinsed my hands. Then I grabbed a protein bar and headed upstairs. Left the candles burning. Left her sitting in the warmth she created too late. She didn't follow. Didn't say a word. But the sound of her breath when I closed the door behind me, it cracked. Like someone realizing they'd set the table for a guest who'd already left the country. The next day, she touched me. Just a hand on my shoulder. Light. Meant to be natural, but felt rehearsed. I stepped away without thinking. No anger. No rejection. Just instinct. Her fingers hovered in the air for a second, then fell, and something in her dropped with them. Sunday, she asked if I wanted to join her for a walk. It's nice out, she said. We haven't done that in a while. I already went, I replied. Another pause. You could come again. I could, I said, but I didn't move. Later that evening, I noticed she had unpacked an old photo album, left it open on the coffee table. Pictures of us, smiling, young, touched by a kind of closeness you can't fake. It sat there for days. I never turned the page. Because when a man reclaims his peace, he doesn't revisit what broke it. She thought gestures could rewind time. But time doesn't bend for sentiment. It only honors consistency. And now, every memory she tried to summon was met with a man she no longer recognized. Not bitter. Not cruel. Just gone. Not physically. Not yet. But spiritually? I'd already moved out. Out of the emotional labor. Out of the quiet hope. Out of the effort she thought would always be there. She used to weaponize indifference. Now she was learning how it feels when indifference doesn't hide a storm, but is the storm itself. She pivoted fast. When silence didn't work, she turned outward. That week, her Instagram lit up like a stage. Pictures of us from last summer. Captions like grateful for simple moments and love takes work, but it's worth it. She tagged me in 3 posts. I didn't like them. Didn't comment. Didn't even open them. She texted, "Did you see the post? Thought you'd smile." I replied 2 hours later, "Busy. Glad you had a good time." The next day, her mother called me. That was new. "Everything all right between you two?" she asked, in that polite but probing tone that only mothers have mastered. "We're figuring some things out," I said. A long pause. She said, "You've been distant." She left out the part where I used to exist for her convenience. Another pause. Then a quiet, "I see." That's when I realized the spotlight she tried to shine on me was backfiring. Her image had always been curated, independent, empowered, always in control. But people were beginning to notice the cracks. Her sister sent me a text the next evening. Just one sentence. "I don't know what she did, but you look lighter lately." I didn't reply. I didn't have to. The silence was starting to reflect, and she felt it. The next morning, she placed her hand on my chest as I buttoned my shirt. Soft. Familiar. "I miss us," she said. I didn't flinch. Just buttoned the last button and said, "We haven't existed in a while." Her eyes filled, but she held the tears in like it might give her leverage. I walked out the door. That night, she tried one more time. She invited 2 of our old friends over. A dinner, like the old days. Wine. Laughter. A playlist we used to play on Sunday mornings. I was polite. Told stories. Was charming. She smiled at me like she remembered who I used to be. But when our guests left, she reached for my hand. I pulled back. "We're not a show," I said. She looked away. For once, with no words. Because she knew the difference now. I wasn't performing. I was disappearing. One habit at a time. One shared moment withheld. One quiet wall after another. The man who once tried to win her back was gone. And the man standing in his place? He wasn't angry. He was free. And the more she tried to win that version of me over with the same old tricks, the more obvious it became. The audience had left. The stage was empty. And all that remained was her echo. By week 5, the shift wasn't emotional anymore. It was operational. I rerouted my direct deposit to a private account, just enough to keep the house running, but no more joint indulgences, no more invisible support lines. I let the financial silence speak louder than any argument ever could. She noticed quickly. "Why did Netflix log me out?" she asked, standing in the living room with her phone in her hand. I didn't look up. It was under my card. "Okay, but it's not a shared service anymore." That ended the conversation. 2 days later, she stood by the pantry. "We're out of almond milk." I nodded. "And the protein bars you like?" "And everything, really." "Yeah," I said. "I shop for myself now." It landed. Not with rage, but with that subtle, delayed sting you get when you finally realize the other person isn't bluffing. That the things you once assumed would be replaced aren't. I didn't argue, didn't mock, just moved differently. I started keeping a small gym bag in the trunk. Sometimes I didn't come home right after work. A quiet dinner alone. A drive. A long workout. Space. She'd ask, "Where were you?" "Out." "With who?" "People." Short answers. No lies. Just no access. She started calling more, leaving soft-voiced voicemails. "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're okay." I never responded, not out of malice, but because I didn't know her updates anymore. Not after years of silence she called normal. One night, I came home to find her sitting in the bedroom, door half open, a glass of wine untouched on the nightstand. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice small. I leaned against the frame. "You can talk." "I know I pulled away. I know I made you feel invisible. But I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't think it would get this far." I nodded. Neither did I. She hesitated, waiting for something. A sign. A crack in my calm. "I want to fix this." "I don't," I said. She blinked. Not because she didn't expect it, but because it was the first time I'd said it out loud. It wasn't passive anymore. It was intentional. "I can change," she whispered. I already did. I left her in the room with her wine, her regrets, and the slow realization that love doesn't die in fire. It dies in frost. Quiet. Gradual. Final. And by the time she reached for the warmth again, I wasn't cold. I was gone. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. No alarm. No reason. Just a stillness in my chest that told me it was time. She was still asleep, curled on her side, the way she always did when she felt vulnerable. A version of her I hadn't seen in years. And maybe once, that would have pulled something from me. A softness. A hesitation. One last attempt. But not today. I got dressed in silence. Packed a small bag I'd prepped a week earlier, nothing obvious. Just the essentials. A few clothes. A flash drive. The signed paperwork. I moved through the house like a ghost that already knew his own exit. I didn't slam a single door. Didn't scribble a note. Didn't pause at the doorway for a dramatic look back. I just left. But I didn't vanish. Not yet. I went to the bank. Signed the final forms to separate the last joint account. Closed the shared investment app. Transferred the title on the second car. Quiet moves. All above board. All legal. All irreversible. Then I drove. Nowhere special. Just away. Hours passed. My phone buzzed twice. A text, then a missed call. I didn't read it. Around noon, I pulled into a small motel. Neutral. Clean. Temporary. I wasn't fleeing. I was transitioning. From husband to man. From support system to sovereign. Later that day, I sent her a single message. Check the folder on the desk. Inside that folder, a copy of the separation agreement, a note from my attorney, and a list of everything I'd already disentangled. No threats. No explanations. Just facts. 15 minutes later, my phone rang again. I let it go to voicemail. Then another. Then another. I turned off the ringer. Because here's the part they never teach you. The loudest moment in a woman's life isn't when a man screams. It's when he walks away so quietly she hears every choice she ever made echo in the silence he leaves behind. That evening, she emailed me. "Can we please just talk before this goes any further?" It already had. The man she expected to plead, to wait, to pause for her late realizations, he wasn't here anymore. He'd left piece by piece. Now all that remained was her reflection. And mine was finally clear. 3 days passed. No response from me. Not a text. Not an email. Not even a read receipt. The silence had become its own language. And by then, she was fluent in it. I'd moved into a short-term apartment. Simple. Quiet. Just mine. No framed photos, no shared drawers, no scent of someone else's lotion lingering in the bathroom. Peace has no perfume, but you recognize it immediately once you breathe it in. She sent one final message. "If this is really it, I need you to say it. I need to hear it." She didn't. Because closure, for her, was a performance. But for me, it was already done. What she didn't understand was that the goodbye had been happening for months. When she laughed at me in that kitchen. When she said she wasn't here to serve. When she stopped seeing me until I was already halfway gone. You don't lose someone in a day. You lose them in the 1,000 tiny moments you take them for granted. She only felt the crash. But I had been living in the wreckage for years. One morning, I got a call from a mutual friend. He kept it casual. "She's not doing great. Just thought you should know." I said, "That's not my job anymore." Because it wasn't. She had built a world where my value was utility. Now she was learning what life looked like without the man who made it all feel effortless. The bills? Coming in. The car? Due for service. The mortgage? No longer automatic. The mask? Slipping. A week later, I ran into her sister at a coffee shop. She gave me a long look. Measured. Not cold. Just adjusted. I get it now, she said. That was it. The only approval I needed. I sipped my coffee. Left a generous tip. Walked out into the morning sun like a man reborn. Not louder, not angrier, just unburdened. That was 6 months ago. I never heard her voice again. Sometimes I get an email. A vague, hope you're well, or thinking of you. But I don't open them. Not out of spite. Out of self-respect. Because the final word wasn't something I said. It was something I became. Absent. And the most powerful goodbye is the one where you never look back. Because some people don't deserve your voice. Only your silence. Forever. Been through it? When they crossed a line and you made sure they felt it.